All right. Now, if you don't already have a note-taking device of some sort, it might be pen, paper, it might be digital, it might be a chisel and a rock, whatever grabs your fancy. If you don't have one already, now is the time to grab it. Let's jump in. Today, I am going to share with you part of the confidence blueprint, which is part of the Public Speaking Made Easy framework that I use. Now, the three biggest challenges I have seen in my decades of teaching and being a public speaker are listed here. Preparation, nerve management, and handling mistakes that happen inevitably in any speaker's journey. In the confidence blueprint that I'm going to outline today and over the next few weeks, I'm going to share with you some tools that I have found that work consistently to help people become better public speakers. Today, we're going to focus on proper preparation. Now, preparation is one of the three key pillars in my public speaking mastery framework, and it deserves equal time with practice and presentation. And public speaking preparation is really important. But before we go through what to do with preparing well, I'd like to share with you a myth that I personally believed wholeheartedly in the early days of being a speaker. And that is volume equals value. Now, back when I started speaking, I used to know that the more content I packed into a talk, the more valuable it was. So whenever I couldn't actually avoid doing a presentation, which I tried to do, if I found that I absolutely had to do a talk, I would load up my talk and I'd jam in slides and data and as much technical information as I could possibly jam in. Because I thought that the only way to truly show that I was prepared and that I knew what I was talking about was to give as much volume as possible. So I would create truly terrible slideshow presentations that looked a little bit like this. And my logic was, if I show everything I know, they'll definitely see my worth. But this volume equals value myth, it's a bit like overpacking for a trip and getting your suitcase and throwing in every possible outfit for every season. Not to mention every gadget, hair dryers, hair straighteners, curlers, and all of those just-in-case items, 27 pairs of shoes, whatever you think you could possibly need. And you jam all that in until the suitcase is bursting. And I have seen this value equals volume belief backfire so many times. And not just for me, but for almost every single person I have ever trained to be a confident speaker. And that's because what happens is that kind of preparation where you're jamming everything in, it just becomes overwhelming. And that overwhelm, that actually creates stress and anxiety about speaking in public. And this stress means we either over-prepare and we spend hours polishing details that just don't matter, or we swing the other way and we bury our heads in the sand and avoid preparation altogether until the absolute last minute, and then we do a really crap job at it. Now, both of these paths lead to the exact same place. Standing up to speak without much confidence. So here is my first speech preparation tip to help change that. Know the goal. And what that means is be really, really, really clear on the one main message that we want people to remember at the end of our talk. In other words, what do we want people to think, do, or feel at the end of our presentation. Let me give you an example of a speech goal in real life. J.K. Rowling gave a speech at the Harvard commencement ceremony in 2008, and her speech had this one goal: to show the value of failure and imagination in life. And her whole talk was structured around that one goal. So how do we get to our speech goal? Well, step one is really important, and it might seem really obvious, but write it down. If we can put our main message into one short sentence, that means we've got a very clear anchor for where we're going with our talk. Now, here's a bit of a hack that you can use. Get ChatGPT to help you with the wording, so you can kind of put it into language that really resonates with you. The thing about writing down your goal for your talk is that when you can see it in words on a page, it helps us to really get a clear visual picture of where we want our talk to end up. And that's really what a goal is. It's the place our talk takes our audience to, the end point. Step two, check that your goal is clear. And the easiest way to do this is something I've borrowed from Alex Hormozi, and this is how he writes all of his books. And he asks, would a 12-year-old understand this? I think he says the language he uses is, would this resonate with a third grader? So I like to say, would a 12-year-old understand this? Now, even better, if you're not sure, ask ChatGPT to put your goal into the language that a 12-year-old would understand. That's my pro hack for this session today. Put into ChatGPT this prompt: here is my goal. Please put this into the language that a 12-year-old would understand. The main point behind this step is we want our goal to be very, very clear for our audience. Now, Simon Sinek gave a TED talk in 2009, and his goal for his talk was to explain why great leaders inspire action. Now, when he knew the goal of his talk, he then could prepare his talk with that end result in mind. It's very, very clear. In fact, that goal is only 6 words long. Explain why great leaders inspire action. So 6 words for his goal for his whole talk. So clarity is very important. Step 3, make it relevant. And this is super important. You want to make sure that the message or the goal that you're trying to achieve is something that your audience either cares about or represents why they're there listening to you to start with. So make sure it's really relevant to your audience. Now here's a talk by Amy Cuddy, a TED talk that she did in 2012. And she did a talk, and her goal for that talk was to show how body language can change how we feel about ourselves. And her whole talk was structured around that. Now I'll put this in here because of the relevance component of preparing that particular goal. Her audience in that TED talk was a group of people who were psychologists, neuroscientists, and social scientists. So that was a really relevant goal for that particular audience. Now that we know relevance is really important, think about your talk. What's relevant for the audience of your talk? What is it that they really want or need to know from our talk? Now here's a bonus step. Once we've written down our goal and we've made sure it's clear and relevant, it's time to get brutal. And this is where we cut out or remove any extra points that don't support that main goal. And the really important thing here to understand is that less is more. And again, we can use ChatGPT to give us some options on how to remove any points that are not clear or specific in our goal. So you can put a prompt into ChatGPT saying, this is the goal I've got for my talk. This is the audience I've got. Please make this really clear. Cut out anything that's not necessary or doesn't contribute to that goal. Winston Churchill did a very famous talk in World War One or two, World War One or Two, I'm not sure which World War it was, but he did a talk called We Shall Fight on the Beaches. And the goal of his talk was simply to boost courage and determination during World War II. It's World War II. So the goal of his talk was to inspire and motivate the troops that were having horrific conditions and to help them to feel motivated to continue the fight. And it's a very famous speech. And one of the reasons it's very famous is because there was a very specific goal that he wanted to achieve. So knowing our goal is important when we're preparing our talks. So let's have a look at the 3 key steps in preparing our goal. The first one is write it down. The second one is make sure it's really clear. And the third one is make sure it's really relevant. Now remember that the idea is at the end of our talk, if our audience only remembered one thing from what we said, what would that be? And it should be your goal. In my presentation today, I want you to remember that preparing a talk with a simple goal helps to make confident speakers. So the action from this training session today is look at the talk that you have coming up for yourself and ask yourself, what's my goal? And in fact, for those action takers, those people who really want to lift their public speaking confidence and skills quickly, I invite you to write your goal as a post into the Vocal Power community so that you can get some feedback from myself and from other members of the community on how clear and relevant that goal is. And if you see somebody else's goal written in the community, please make comments and share with the speaker whether you find that goal clear and relevant. In our next session, we are going to cover step 2 in preparing properly, and that is knowing your audience. So I look forward to seeing you at that session.